Evil does not sleep. It waits. It waits. I've always wondered, how can sin be such a small word, but such a big problem? It does not make sense to me, such a tiny word. But yet, it's the biggest problem in the world today. Just 3 letters. It's a pathetic little word. A pathetic 3-letter word. Yet the carnage and pure destruction that sin can cause boggles the mind. Don't you think, with the destruction that sin causes, it should be called something daunting like Tyrannosaurus? But I believe God intentionally called sin, sin, and kept it so small to show how sin can be deceptive. But that it's the deceptive nature of sin. It's a small word, but my word does it destroy. The graveyard is full of people who were led to early grave because of sin. I remember watching a news story of a man who killed another man because he caught him sneaking around with his wife. Sin. That is what sin does. This man is in the grave now because of his sin. Prisons are full of people purely because of that one word, sin. I remember reading an article of a man that was involved in road rage, and he ended up leaving his car to get into a physical altercation with another man. He won the fight, but he's in jail today. He never had a problem with the law, not so much as even a speeding ticket on his record, but because one day he got into an altercation and left the other man with life-altering injuries, he is in jail today. Sin is such a small little word. Such a small, little, tiny word, but it destroys lives. Now look at how serious sin is. Sin is serious, so serious that the eternal, everlasting God, the creator of heaven and earth, the Lord Jesus, had to come to earth to deal with the issue of sin. Sin is an issue that mankind can't handle. Sin is an issue that no angel or cherub or seraphim could handle. Sin is an issue that God himself had to come and deal with. Do you understand that? God has to come to deal with this problem, to offer us a route for salvation. Don't ever take sin lightly, as it is serious. Sin is such a small little word, such a small, tiny little word, but it destroys lives. I've seen sin reduce grown men to tears, big, strong men crying, big, strong, hard men reduced to tears. I have seen it, men who have cheated on their wives so many times that the wife finally has had enough and she is leaving him. Now that 10 minutes of pleasure he enjoyed seems pointless at the prospect of losing his family. Sin. The world's biggest problem is not inflation, it's not corrupt politicians, it's not evil dictators. It is a 3-letter word, S-I-N. Even though it is such a small word, the consequences are dire. Does that make sense to you? How can one sin cause so much havoc in people's lives? Look at Eve. One sin caused the world to be in a mess it is today. As far as we are in the flesh, we must keep fighting the war against sin. Our flesh cannot be born again. Therefore, we must keep crucifying it on a daily basis in order to put it under check. In 1 Corinthians 9:27, Paul tells us how he was able to overcome sin. But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. This was a constant process. Our bodies must be pummeled, otherwise its unruly appetite for sin will lead us astray. Sin has a deceptive nature. If you do not learn how to keep yourself under a strong spiritual watch, you will find yourself falling victim of the same sin you used to commit before coming to Christ. Sin can lay dormant in a person for a good number of years until it finds a convenient time to resurrect. Sin does not sleep or die. Rather, it waits for an opportune time. It can hibernate in an individual for so long until it finds a good environment to thrive in. Sin waits. That is the deceptive nature of sin. It waits. Sin is watching you and waiting. Allow me to give you real-world examples of how sin can wait. Let's say the individual has had a bad day and one bad thing is leading to another. They go to work and their boss at work was behaving in a rude manner towards them. Their work on the computer deletes before they had a chance to save it, so 2 hours of work is down the drain. They forget their lunch and wallet at home, so they have no lunch today, and now they are driving back home on the edge, and someone cuts them off on the freeway. Then they go back home and get into an argument with their husband, and all the negative things that have happened to them today build up to this moment of anger. They get angry and they begin to sin in their anger. They call their husband every cuss word under the sun. They insult him in a disrespectful manner. That is life. All day, these negative things have been happening to this individual, and they built up to this loggerhead. And they sin in your anger, talking to your husband in a manner that does not reflect the life of a born-again child of God. Another perfect example is a married woman who has been faithful in her marriage for over a decade, and then she has a really bad argument with her husband before going to celebrate her friend's engagement. She leaves the house on bad terms with her husband, and whilst out at the restaurant, she meets her high school sweetheart, the guy she thought she was going to marry, and they hit it off, and one thing leads to another, and she commits adultery. That is life. Sin waits. In your life at one point or another, there will be opportunities to sin because sin waits for people. It's not that she left the house with an agenda to sin. The opportunity just presented itself. And that is life. Life will always present opportunities to sin. That is why we are to stay on guard. We are to daily keep our bodies under subjection. There are many believers that will fail if you subject them to the test of Joseph. When certain people find themselves in strange places, they will loosen up and commit any sin they like because no one is watching them. Many people are not committing obvious sin now because their parents, spouses, children, or pastor is around. Once they leave the environment of the people keeping watch over them, their sinful tendencies will resurrect. They can hide that nature of sin for as long as the environment is not conducive for them to commit it. Be on guard against sin. If you have ever struggled with a sin, don't let your guard down for a moment. It is waiting. Evil does not sleep. It waits. Sin waits. God told Cain in Genesis 4:6-7, "And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." The last part of this passage opens our understanding to the fact that sin always desires to have us, but that we can always rule over it if we choose to take responsibility. Cain was angry because God rejected his sacrifice, but he transferred his aggression wrongly. Wait a phrase. Sin lieth at the door. Evil does not sleep, it waits. Sin waits. Right now in your life, there is a sin waiting to pull you down. Stay on guard. Don't let your guard down. Live a holy life when people are watching and when no one is watching. We must learn that any weakness we fail to deal with will someday deal with us. Sin does not sleep, it waits. And it can wait for as long as you can think of. What is your own weakness? Are you sure you have overcome it, or is it hiding somewhere and waiting for a convenient day? You must ask the Lord to search your heart today and rid you of any sin, evil, or weakness that may want to ruin your Christian race. We all have different things we are struggling with. Yours may be anger. You may not be a liar, but you get angry easily. Another person may not have anger issues, but tells lies easily. We all have different things we are struggling with. We are battling with many things in us, but I want you to know that these things can never be the end of us. Do battle with that sin. It is your enemy. And the way you can do it is by living a life filled with self-control. You need to end their reign. You need to let them know that you are in control. You need to let them know that you are now a different person. You need to let them know that you may be in this world, but you are not of the world.
1 John 2:15-17 warns, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. Everything you see in the world today, including all the fashions and trends and pleasures, are only passing away alongside those that have a grip on them. Living for Christ in a fallen world is the only hope of eternity with God. There is no doubt that the world has fallen, because there is no better way to define people who forget the essence of their existence: God. It is only those that will do the will of God that will abide forever. God cannot be mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, that he will reap. The world has nothing to offer to those who follow its trend. But our God is sure. He rewards His people on earth and also in eternity. Love not the world. The rapture is coming soon.